continue this lesson 1 by considering now an important affine subgroup of the group SL2R. This group is made of elements which have the following form. You have on the diagonal the square root of A and its inverse for A positive, and 0 on the left bottom, and a real parameter B divided by square root of A on the right top of the matrix. So a simpler notation is precisely to put in parentheses first B and afterwards A. B is a translation parameter and A is a dilation parameter as we are going to see immediately. This group, denoted by affine plus R, is named affine because of its Möbius action, which are translation dilation on the real line. Let's make explicit this action. When you consider a point on the real line, the action of this element of the group on this point is given by square root of ax plus b over square root of a divided by 1 over square root of a. This is a Möbius action, okay, due to this matrix. And you can see that comes to a translation by b of the dilated version of x dilated by the multiplication due to the multiplication by the parameter A. With those notations, the multiplication law reads in a practical way in the following. The multiplication between two elements, B1, A1 with B2, A2, is given by B1 adds the multiplication of B2 by A1, and for the second element, you have just the multiplication of the dilation parameters, A1, A2. The unity is, of course, 1, 0, and the inverse of an element BA is given by, for the translation parameter, minus B over A, and for the multiplication parameter, the dilation parameter, the inverse of A. In consequence, we can consider the set of pairs of parameters of this type, where here they are denoted by x, y, where x is a real number and y is a positive number. This is actually the upper half plane H. We have already considered this aspect, this geometric object. This upper half plane is viewed as the affine group itself, is viewed as the affine group of the real line. Now here we have an exercise which is very useful. If you consider the measure we already introduced on the upper half plane H, this measure dx dy over y squared, this measure is left invariant with respect to this action. Okay? That means if you multiply xy here by another element of the group, on the left. The result will be x prime y prime, but dx prime dy prime over y prime squared is equal to dx dy over y squared. Now the affine subgroup is a semi-direct product of two subgroups. So let's consider some definition here. First, a direct product of two groups. What is the meaning of that? You take two groups, G1 and G2, and the direct product of those two groups consists in putting together the two groups without interaction. It's just their Cartesian product, endowed with the group law G1, G2 times G prime 1, G prime 2 is equal to, for the first element of the pair G1, G prime 1, that means here we use the multiplication law for J1, and here we use, for the second term, the multiplication law for G2. And of course, neutral element is made of the pair E1, E2, where E1 is the neutral element of J1, and E2 is the neutral element of G2. And with the identification, G1 is like G1, E2, and G2 is like E1, G2. Both groups are invariant subgroups of G1, direct product of G2. Now, what is the semi-direct product of two groups, G1 and G2? Suppose given a homomorphism alpha from G2 into the group automorphism of G1 then we define the semi-direct product G1, symbol of semi-direct product, G2, as a Cartesian product endowed with the group law now, which is not the same, of course, of this one, G1, G2, times G prime 1, G prime 2, it is given by, for the first element, G1 times the action of the automorphism of G1 due to the action of G2 in the second group on G prime 1, and here we take just the product of G2 with J prime 2. And the neutral element is still E1, E2, and the inverse of G1, G2 is given by minus, actually we should put here the inverse of this quantity, not minus, here there is a mistake, it is the inverse of this quantity, alpha G2 minus 1 of G1, acting on G1, and G2 minus 1. So, with the previously defined notation for subgroup of SL2R, and by properly defined alpha, prove that the affine group of the real line is just given by as the semi-direct product of the subgroup N plus, here it should be a capital N plus, with the subgroup of diagonal subgroup capital A. Here we should put capital N plus. Now, SL2R, actually, it should be PSL2R. That means we should not distinguish between plus or minus G in the group. Acts homographically on the upper half plane and using the complex representation of the of the plane. That means any element of the plane is a complex number x plus I, y. This action here, homographic action, reads as the following. We consider an element of SL2R. We consider an element of the half plane. And to Z will correspond the action of G on Z. Here I will put a C dot in order to define this action. And this action is given by the ratio AZ plus B over CZ plus D. And that gives another element of the upper half plane. And this is the object of the exercise. Check that we consistently have if the imaginary part of the complex number Z is positive, then the imaginary part of the complex number Z prime is also positive. And conversely, if this imaginary part is negative, strictly negative, the sign of the homographic action on Z will also conserve the negative sign. So the action defined by this ratio is transitive. That means for any D1, D2 in the upper half plane, there exists an element of the group PSL2R such that we can bring Z1 to Z2 through the action of G on Z1. This action is also faithful. That means if you have an element G which leaves fixed any element of the complex on the upper half plane, then this element is the identity. And we call stabilizer or isotropy subgroup of an element Z in the upper half plane the set of elements in PSL2R which leave Z unchanged. Okay? And now you can try to solve this little exercise. Prove that the stabilizer of the pure imaginary I is the rotation subgroup SO2. Since any element Z of the upper half plane is mapped to I by some element of PSL2R, this means that the isotropic subgroup of any Z is isomorphic to SO2. Thus, we can consider the upper half plane as a coset, the left coset of the group PSL2R by the subgroup SO2. Now let's consider the Lobachevskian geometry of the half plane. The Poincaré half plane model is the upper half plane H together with what we call the Poincaré metric. That means the infinitesimal element in the half plane ds squared is equal, we define this element as being the square of this element by dx squared plus dy squared divided by y squared. Okay? Where S measures the length along a possibly curved line. And this metric makes the half plane H a model of two-dimensional hyperbolic geometry. So now, by doing some integration on this differential element concerning the length defined in this way, the infinitesimal length defined in this way, proves that the distance between 2 points of H is given by this expression. And it's interesting to consider what happens to, for instance, to the geodesics for this metric. What are the geodesics of the Poincaré half plane? They are circular arcs perpendicular to the x-axis. Okay, they are curves of this type. They can be extremely small, more and more important, and also when the radius is radius is reduced to 0, they are just half line starting from the real axis. And this geometry actually is left invariant with respect to the action of SL2R or PSL2R on the half plane. Exactly like the Euclidean geometry is left invariant on their rotations and translation. So, besides the Poincaré half plane H, there is another equivalent representation commonly used in two-dimensional hyperbolic geometry, namely the open unit disk in the plane, defined as the set of complex numbers with modulus smaller than 1, strictly. How can we go from the disk to the half plane and conversely? They are related by a conformal map. Conformal because the map preserves angles, and this map is given by the following expression. You go from the half plane to the unit disk by taking this ratio z minus a certain fixed z0 divided by z minus the complex conjugate of z0 and multiply by complex number, fixed complex number of modulus 1. Okay. So exercise prove that this map is 1-to-1. That means you can take the inverse of this map. And when we choose z0 is equal to just I, the purely imaginary number, and the angle phi, the argument of this complex number equal to pi over 2, that means this quantity is equal to 1. In that case, we define this mapping as a canonical mapping from the half plane to the unit disk. So this canonical map takes I to the center of the disk and the origin O of the complex plane to the bottom of the disk. So another exercise shows that the unit disk D is invariant under transformation of the homographic or Möbius type. Where the transformation from Z to Z prime is given by the ratio alpha Z, capital Z plus beta, divided by conjugate of beta times capital Z plus conjugate of alpha, where alpha and beta are complex numbers such that modulus squared of alpha minus modulus squared of beta is different of 0. Now, since a common factor of alpha and beta here is completely unimportant in the transformation from Z to Z prime, one can associate to the latter the 2 by 2 complex matrix alpha, beta, beta bar, alpha bar, called matrix S, with determinant S, and we fix the determinant equal to 1. Okay, we write the transformation in this way, the previous transformation in this way, and the set of matrices of this type form the group, the so-called group SU11. And the exercise proves that SU11 leaves invariant the boundary of the unit disk, that means the unit circle in the complex plane, which is on the algebraic level, which is isomorphic to U1. The group, the subgroup of the complex number of unit modulus. And prove that the measure for the exercise, the next exercise, the measure D real part of capital Z, D imaginary part of capital Z divided by 1 minus modulus Z squared, and you take the square of this quantity. This measure on the unit disk is invariant on their transformation, this transformation. So now when we go from the half plane to the unit disk, we can consider, in the case, for instance, of the canonical Möbius transformation, we can consider as precisely like we did for homographic action, we can consider this transformation as the action, homographic action on this matrix on Z. Okay? Just adapt to this Möbius transformation, okay, the notation we used already for the homographic action of SL2R on the half plane. Conversely, we can make the inverse of that, so that corresponds to the action of this inverse matrix of M given by this expression. If we consider those matrices, we can see they have determinant 1, both. Okay? But of course, they don't belong to the group SL2R, and they don't belong to the group. They belong actually. No, they don't belong to the group SU11 as well. Actually, they belong to the group SU2. When extended to the boundaries, the bijection 1.44, this one, is called Cayley transformation that maps in a stereographic way the unit circle S1 onto the real line as well. So this kind of action, this kind of map, transform the real line into the unit circle and conversely. Transform the unit circle into the real line. So, using the Cayley transform, canonical Cayley transform, which brings an element of the half plane on an element of the unidisk, the transformation of the homographic action due to the homographic action of SU11 on the unidisk becomes in the half plane the homographic action of SL2R, okay, and where G is calculated in the following way. You take this matrix S, you take this Möbius transform, you take this inverse, its inverse here, and you get an element of SL2R. So like this, you map SL2R, you map SU11 onto SL2R. And conversely, you map an element of SL2R into an element of SU11 through the inverse transform. And you can see the relation between A, B, C, D and alpha, beta, and beta, which is not so simple to establish. So it's interesting to see what are the transforms, what are the images of various subgroups of SL2R, subgroups A, diagonal, compact, SO2, hyperbolic subgroup, and the group, the subgroup N plus or minus, and N of SL2R. So it's interesting to see in which subgroups they are transformed through this map M or M minus 1. Now, since you have a Poincaré metric on the half plane, you can transport through the map M defined previously this metric onto the unidisk in the following way, and we get the following metric on the unidisk as being dz times dz conjugate divided by 1 minus modulus squared of capital Z. And now if we consider the surface element defined in this way, this of course define a measure on the unidisk which is invariant under SU11. And those quantities are both issued from what we call a Kählerian potential Kd, which is defined by this function on the unidisk, and we can check that this metric is given by the action of this partial differential operators on the logarithm of this expression times dz bar, of course, and for this measure here, what you get also from the action, this differential action on the logarithm of, let's say, I think here there is something which is not correct. I will have to correct that because I should find a square here. Yes, I think there is. I have to correct that because there is a mistake here. So now, prove that the distance for this geometry, Lobachevskian geometry, on the unidisk is given by this expression, starting from the Poincaré metric, which is defined here. Or maybe here there is a square, which is forgotten also, I think, because otherwise something is, I have to check that. I will correct. Okay. Now we can consider the action of SL2R on specific quadrics in R3 in space R3. So SL2R, of course, has a 2x2 real matrix acts on the set of 2x2 real matrices in the following way. You consider an element of SL2R. You consider an element which is general matrix 2x2 matrix with real coefficients, and you transform this matrix in the following way: G times capital X times G minus 1. So here, from this action, you have two invariants, the trace of this matrix and the determinant of this matrix. So if you consider the set of traceless matrices of this type, okay, the determinant is given by this quantity, and you can see that if we fix the determinant to plus the square of some real number or minus the square of a real number or 0 here, the set of such matrices describes the points in R3 forming an one-sheeted hyperboloid n minus for epsilon is equal to -1, or a two-sheeted hyperboloid like this for epsilon is equal to 1. Okay, or the null cone for epsilon is equal to 0. Okay. On the rotational symmetry, of course, with respect to the axis of those hyperboloid or null cone. Now, let's equip R3 with the Minkowskian, the so-called Minkowskian metric, eta mu nu. That means we consider the matrix, which is the diagonal matrix with +1, -1, -1 on the diagonal. And if we introduce what we call the Lorentz-like dot product of two vectors, in R3 equipped with this matrix x dot y is equal to x0, y0 minus x1, y1 minus x2, y2, defined in this way, where we adopt what we call the Einstein summation. That means when we repeat the index mu here and here, that means we make a summation on mu taking the value 0, 1, 2, and the same for nu. So here, because the eta mu is diagonal, we get just x mu, y mu, or x mu, y mu. And this is equal to minus 1/2 of the trace of the product of the two matrices x, y. Okay. And we lower the index mu of x mu by using precisely this expression by the summation on eta mu nu. That means if we consider x mu as being this quantity, x 0, where 0 is lower index, is equal to x0 when 0 is upper index. x1 lower is equal to minus x1 upper, and x2 when 2 is lower is equal to minus x2 when 2 is upper. And what is what we call the proper orthochronous Lorentz group with this notation? It is formed by of 3 by 3 real matrices, capital lambda, acting on R3 as x prime is equal to lambda x, okay, where x prime is a column vector, x also is a column vector. It's an action in the following way, where this matrix 3 by 3 matrix has a determinant equal to 1, and we call that proper transformation of the Lorentz group, and where the sign of x prime 0 remains the same as the sign of x0, and this corresponds to the adjective orthochronous. And this action is precisely an isometry of the Minkowskian space. That means R3 equipped with this dot product. Now, introducing the 3 basic matrices 0, 0, 1, minus 1, theta 1 equal minus theta 1. Here exactly like for the vectors I introduced precisely. Theta 1 is equal to 1 minus 1 lower and minus theta 1 when 1 is upper. Theta 2 is equal to minus theta 2 where 2 is upper and here lower. So is equal to this matrix. So every matrix X in 1.58 is given by this expression. It can be decomposed in the sum of 3 elements, 3 elementary matrices. Here where you put the components x0, x1, x2. So you can write this as x nu, theta nu. And in this way we can prove the isomorphism between SL2R, homomorphism actually, between SL2R and S012, S012 is precisely the Lorentz group we defined before. SO0112 is actually isomorphic to the coset of SL2R by the subgroup plus or minus 1 through this relation between matrix elements. Lambda mu nu is given by minus 1/2 the trace of the product of those four matrices, theta nu G, theta nu G to the minus 1. SO012 is precisely the subgroup, the Lorentz group, proper orthochrones of R3 equipped with the Minkowskian metric we defined in the previous slide. Now, let's consider SL2R as unit co-quaternions. So, first, we consider the left action of SL2R on itself in this way. You take a specific element G0 of SL2R. This specific element acts on SL2R through what we call the left action. It can be also a right action. That means to G correspond G0. It's a linear action of SL2R on itself. And there exists a nice geometric and algebraic interpretation in terms of quadrics in R4 and and the so-called co-quaternions. For that, let us introduce the following parameterization of the algebra M2R of 2 by 2 real matrices in terms of coordinates in R4. Here. Okay. Here we don't consider a metric like we did for the Lorentz group. Okay. So here we introduce a basis for the set of matrices, 2 by 2 matrices, real matrices, and this basis is made of the identity here of the group SL2R. And here I introduce the three matrices T1, that means this one 0, 0, 1, 1, T2, 0, 0 on the diagonal and the minus 1 and 1 on the anti-diagonal, and T3 with 1 minus 1 on the diagonal. And the algebraic relations, I recommend to ready to make the checking of those relations. T1, T2, which is equal to minus T2, T1 is equal to T3. T2, T3 is equal to minus T3, T2 is equal to T1, and T3, T1 is equal to minus T1, T3 is equal to minus T2. And when you take the square of T1 and T3, you get the identity. When you take the the square of T2, you get minus the identity. And when you take the product of T1, T2, T3, you get the identity. And the set, denoted in this way, of element in R4 where you have what we call a scalar part which is equal to x0 and the vector part which is equal to the triplet x1, x2, x3. Okay, this set is named the set of co-quaternions, and this concept comes from James Cockle in 1849, or split quaternions. This set forms a non-commutative ring equipped with the isotropic quadratic form n of q, given by x0 squared minus x1 squared plus x2 squared minus x3 squared, and this is equal also to the determinant of G here, and also you can check it's equal to Q times Q star, where Q star is the conjugate of Q. That means you change just the sign of the vector part, and each co-quaternions Q with n of Q different of 0 as inverse Q minus 1, which is equal to Q star divided by n of Q. It's almost like complex number, except, of course, you have here, because the metric is not definite positive, you have, of course, non-zero co-quaternions which have no inverse, because in that case n of q is equal to 0. So exercise determines the co-quaternion multiplication rules in terms of notation, scalar part and vector parts, and check that n of qq prime is equal to the product of n of q and the n of q prime. Exercise, if we identify SL2R with the multiplicative group of co-quaternions with n of q is equal to 1, okay, that means all elements of all co-quaternions here are invertible. We call that unit co-quaternions. They form a pseudo-unit sphere in R4 here. And this determines the 4x4 matrix due to the linear action of G belonging to SL2R on Q in this multiplicative group of co-quaternions of with n of q is equal to 1 through the left action G0. Of course, that can be also the right action, so you can use both the both actions. And another exercise proves that the topology of this H3 is the topology of the Cartesian product unit circle times unit circle times R, and this product Cartesian product is actually the torus T2 times R. And you can make an explicit system of coordinates, two angles, and the real numbers. So here I give a list of course, references which can be useful for completing your culture in group theory and representations. So this ends the first lessons, and we are going to start the second lesson